Hello, everyone. This is the first of what we hope are going to be many Conductors Guild Google Hangouts. My name is John Devlin, and I am a board member of the Conductors Guild, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And we've got four really esteemed guests joining us today for our discussion about assistant conductor positions. So I'm going to first start by asking everyone to go around the virtual room and introduce yourselves.
Hi there, my name is Vinay Parameshwaran. I'm the Associate Conductor of the Nashville Symphony. I've held this position since January of 2014. Originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, I went to Brown University for my undergrad. I was a music and political science major, and then I went to the Curtis Institute of Music for 4 years. I studied with Otto Werner Mueller and finished up in May of 13 and was lucky enough to get this job and started in January of 14. So it's my second full season that I'm just starting now.
And hello everyone, my name is Elaine Chan. I'm originally from Hong Kong and I grew up there, and I came to the United States for my undergraduate at the Smith College in 2009. And then after I finished my undergrad, I went to Michigan and studied, University of Michigan, and did my master's and DMA, and I graduated this year. And now I'm the assistant conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra. And how did I get the job is that I won the Donatello Flick conducting competition back in 2014, and that's the prize. So here I am.
Hey everyone, I'm Michelle Merrill. I am the assistant conductor of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, originally from Texas, and did my undergraduate at Southern Methodist University in performance and education, and then went to Boston while my husband got his degree, and then when he was done I got to come back and actually decided to get my master's at Southern Methodist University as well, because I really liked the teacher there, Paul Phillips, and he had a really strong connection with the Dallas Symphony, and so I was able to kind of go and watch their rehearsals and see the conductors that came through. And after graduating with my master's in, when was that, May of 2012, that fall I won my first job with the Northeastern Pennsylvania Philharmonic, and then won the job with the Detroit Symphony, and I'm starting my second season tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Hi everyone, my name is Ankush Kumar Bahel. I am just leaving a 4-year tenure as the assistant conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra. I also grew up in the Bay Area, and I went to UC Berkeley in California, studied music and rhetoric, spent 1 year in Ann Arbor studying with Ken Kiesler before applying to grad school. Then I went to Manhattan School of Music in New York, studying with Zdenek McCall. And then I've lived in New York for 10, 15 years, just working with youth orchestras and doing various professional and educational things, conducting. And then I won this job, 4 or 5 years ago, and then I've been in DC for about 1.5 years before I was commuting from New York. So, and now it's on to the big wide world of guest conducting.
Great, and as I mentioned before, my name is John Devlin. I am currently the assistant conductor of the Princeton Symphony Orchestra, and I'm also serving as a cover conductor for the National Symphony Orchestra this year. And my background, I started as a clarinetist, and I got my degree at Emory University in Atlanta, where I majored in performance and in Latin. And then I've spent the last 7 years as a student at the University of Maryland, where I studied with Jim Ross, of Cabrillo fame and Conductors Guild fame at this point, and now I'm working in the DC area with those couple of orchestras. So, and I'm very happy to be asked to be the moderator, so I don't have to answer any questions, I just get to ask them. So we're going to start way back. You've all mentioned these fantastic jobs that you currently have. I want to talk to you about how you got them. What are some insider tips I think people want to know about your written or video materials that got you in the door for the audition? Did you have some contact with the organization or with the music director before you applied? And of course, I think everybody has a different track to the job, so why don't we actually hear from everybody on this one, maybe starting with Michelle.
Well, I was the assistant in Northeastern PA with the music director Larry Lowe, who had actually worked with Leonard Slatkin a lot, and so when he knew that Teddy Abrams was leaving Detroit, he actually sent Leonard Slatkin an email saying, you know, I've had this assistant conductor for a few years, she's really great, you might consider inviting her for the audition. So he sent him some of my materials, sent him some video that he just had from when I had sent it to him, and I ended up getting a call from the general manager later that week that said, we've looked over your materials, we've heard some things from some references, we'd like to invite you. And so I was invited that way to come to the audition. So it was a little different in that I actually didn't apply, but I had somebody that I was working with actually speak on my behalf. And there was, I believe, 8 of us in the audition, and it was a process of conducting the orchestra and then also having a meeting with some of the staff and of course Leonard Slatkin. And it was very long and very exciting and fun, and throughout all of it they picked me, so every day I feel lucky to be able to work with the Detroit Symphony for sure.
Awesome. Who'd like to go next?
Sure. This also was an audition at National that was kind of word of mouth, and I had been working with Kurt Mazur in Orchestre Nationale de France for a couple years before this, and he was a frequent guest conductor of the National Symphony. And it was kind of one of those things where they asked people around, they asked Mazur, they asked his manager, and he does all those master classes, so he was able to recommend me. Same kind of thing. It ended up being a lot of people kind of. The first round, I think, is just being asked to send your materials, and then I believe, however many people sent their materials, then they went through the artistic director here at National, so I'm sure the players committee. There's always a variation on a theme of certain panels, either the orchestra committee, the education department, of course, because of what we do so much in education, PR, marketing, and then the music director, of course. I'm sure Eschenbach didn't see my name until he got to the rehearsal that morning when I was conducting. And he says, "Oh, this is the 4 people." So there were 4 people, and I actually had done a workshop with Eschenbach like 10 years earlier, but he barely remembered me. He just kind of recognized my name, I think. That wasn't, in this particular case, that wasn't part of the getting the audition. And then the audition was, half an hour with the orchestra, rehearsing and conducting them, 20-minute interviews with the executive director, the head of artistic, the head of education, and Christoph. And I believe that's it. Maybe if I'm forgetting one person, I apologize. And that was it. It took a couple of, they had meetings after that, and then I was offered the job. I think it's different everywhere. I think sometimes you do send a video and you do send a resume, and to the point of, though, to quickly speak to that, because I've won auditions or taken auditions, when getting the audition and won auditions, sending my materials, of course, as well, as we all have to. I think shorter is better. I think that being succinct in your video and your resume is good, and your letter. I think they're going to quickly look at your resume and know if they want to learn more. I think they're going to quickly look at your video and know quickly if they want to see more. So whatever you have at the top of the resume, at the top of the bio, at the top references, and in the first 30 to 60 seconds of your video is the most important thing. After that, they're going to look longer, if they want to. So if you have something that kind of warms up, or kind of has a nice soliloquy before you get into your actual resume, or an opening paragraph in your letter that doesn't say anything, or a long introduction in your video of your name and the orchestra, and then you walk out on the podium. And you stand there and you contain yourself. And the orchestra tune. I've seen all of it. Just cut to the chase. Start the video soon. I tell people, I don't care if it's mid-phrase. I know we say, no, it's a start at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, ideally it does. But again, if they want a whole movement, they can go to the end of the tape where there's a whole movement. If they want more video, they can ask you for more video. If you think your best conducting starts right there, even if it's the middle of a phrase or not the beginning of a movement, just kind of, not zoom in, fade in and get to what's the meat and your best conducting, and then go on from there. I generally do, I don't do video as much anymore, about 4 or 5 2 to 3 minute clips, and then a whole movement at the end, and rehearsal at the end as well, in case they ask for
it. Maybe I'll go next. So I had met our music director, Giancarlo Guerrero, while I was a student at Curtis. My first year at Curtis, he came and did 2 concerts with the orchestra, and so he met our entire studio then. And then my last year at Curtis, when the Curtis program was changing, he actually was the coach for one of my last lessons at Curtis. So we worked together in a kind of masterclass setting. And I think I don't, the in or whatever that I had was our director of artistic administration, Larry Tucker, used to be with the Milwaukee Symphony, and the conductor he hired in Milwaukee, the assistant there, Francesco Lecce-Chong, was a classmate of mine. And so I think he called Maestro Mueller, my teacher, and asked, who were the other students he had who were graduating, and I think that's how I got the first contact. I think it was July of 13 I sent my resume and first batch of video, and then in September, actually about 10 days before the audition, got an email saying, hey, the audition's happening in 10 days, book your flight, here's the rep. So it was a really quick turnaround, but that's just the way it goes. I mean, what was happening in Nashville at the time is they were renegotiating a contract with the musicians, so that's why everything was delayed, and so that's why everything got pushed to the last minute. But Giancarlo had remembered me because we had met a couple times before. The audition, it was the first round. I think there were four of us, I think. It was 15 minutes in front of the orchestra, conducting, rehearsing various excerpts, and then they made a cut that day. They cut it down to 2 finalists. The next morning, we had an interview with the music director, director of artistic administration, and the committee made up of the concertmaster and a few of the other principals in the orchestra. And then we had to give a pre-concert lecture. I think it was on Brahms, to talk about Brahms's Third Symphony. I think that because that was also on the repertoire list. So we had to give a 10-minute pre-concert talk, and then I think the big curveball, which I had never experienced in another audition, was we had to give a 5-minute simulated lesson teaching either melody, rhythm, or harmony to kids, and they actually brought kids from the Nashville community into the audition because there was a young people's concert happening later that morning. So I think there were 5 or 6 kids, ages 6 to 11, and we did our presentation, and they actually had a vote, in terms of which candidate they preferred, which I thought was very interesting. And then after that, we had a 45-minute round with the orchestra to rehearse, and the 45 minutes is actually very similar to what the job is like. You have maybe 4 pieces you have to prepare in a 45 to hour-long rehearsal. And the repertoire was Don Juan, Appalachian Spring, Brahms' Third First Movement, and Beethoven 5 First Movement. And they want to see, can you get through all that repertoire? Not all of Don Juan, not all of Appalachian Spring, a chunk of it, but can you get through it in that allotted time without going into overtime? It's very important, and getting as much done in a short span of time. And like Ankush said, in terms of the video, I had heard kind of differing viewpoints about what to put on a video, whether to put a whole movement or short excerpts. And what Ankush said is absolutely right. It's better to have really brief, short excerpts that really have your highlights instead of, because these committees get hundreds of videos for all these positions, and of course they're not going to sit through 20 minutes per video combing through an entire movement of a symphony. So just like he said, it's very important that the first top paragraph of your resume has all the good stuff that you want people to see so that you're able to get your foot in the door for an audition.
Yeah, and I'll go last because I also see that my path is very different from what I just heard from the 3 of you, because I almost feel like my path is a shot in the dark, because it's I went into the competition route, which compared to the other just like really applying for positions, but I applied for the Donatello Fit competition. Well, it's one of the one of the major conducting competitions out there. But this one is actually only open to European people who are in EU, so who are Europeans. So and lucky that for me I have the UK citizenship, and that's how I am eligible to do this one. And I applied back in 2012. This competition happens every 2 years. So, and back in 2012, I submitted my materials, didn't get in, didn't get anything, and then I learned my lesson that we just all talk about how to trim my video, how to make my resume better. Definitely, I totally agree with the shorter videos. I think just take out all the fancy, like flash your name, come in, all those things. And I really agree with what Ankush said. Just also like when you find the right chunk that where your best conducting is, just put that right there, because like don't even worry about it's like oh, it's not the starting of a phrase or something, because I know that we all worried about like we should just start in the beginning of a phrase. Also transition wise, just like do it really quick, because like we said, like people nowadays have no time to, they can, like once they see something they don't like, they can find every single reason to eliminate you from the process. So just like really show your best, like every single minute. So I applied again in 2014. I revamped my videos, revamped my CV, my resume, and I got to go to London because to pass whatever, like 200 something applications, and then they chose I think 12 or 10 people to go to London to go through 3 rounds of competition. And the first 2 rounds they were actually with the Guildhall School of Music, which is really a academy orchestra, like a conservatory orchestra that works really closely with the London Symphony. So the 2 rounds were with them, and then the last round, 3 finalists rehearsing and performing with the LSO. And then in the end, the whole orchestra gets to vote, and then the juries get to vote, which I am lucky in the way that I didn't need to go through the pre-concert lecture interviews. Like those are really grilling. That what I know. But because now then I'm learning, after I get the job, I'm learning to do all that, which is later on when the question comes up, we'll share our experience. But this is how I got the job, and of course, preparing for competition is a very different, different, but at the same time very similar to preparing for an audition. I can't even, maybe actually it's not that different, because in the end it's very stressful, but in the end, if you are what they're looking for, and if you find this is the organization that you want to commit with, and you have a lot to give, and it will work out. So I'm the lucky one, and we are the lucky ones.
And one thread that I heard at least 3 of the 4 of you referenced here as kind of a primary thing was that you had some connection to the organization, or at least the music director ahead of time. You had someone speaking on your behalf, or you had worked with them in a master class or something. So I think that this is something not to discount. It's not cheating, it's just strategic. If you make sure that you impress the connections, that you don't know how they're going to pan out, but just do a good job in front of everybody, someone will speak on your behalf to someone that they know, and that will play out well. So I heard Maren Alsop give a talk back when, like 10 years ago, I was at the Bard Institute. I don't know if anybody else went through the Bard Institute. It's a very interesting place, and it's a good place to start. And Maren said, even if you're at the tiniest organization doing some community work or conducting 6 violins or something, conduct that group like it's the last group you're ever going to conduct, because somebody will notice that knows somebody somewhere else, and if they are impressed with you there, they can assure someone else that they'll be impressed with you at your next stop. And I think that that's true, because you think about it, an orchestra is going to turn over to their assistant conductor some really important podium time, some really important outreach items that are critical to their schedule, and if they have an assurance from someone they trust that you do a good job already, that's much more safe in a good way for them than hiring someone that just sent their application materials and looks good on paper or on video. Everyone looks good on paper. Everyone looks good on video. It's that word of mouth that really perpetuates. And I have to say that, I've been in D.C. as a student the last 7 years, and Ankush kind of served as a role model for me as he was the assistant conductor of the National Symphony these last 4 years. The things that he's saying are very true. I had these long, full movement clips on videos. It didn't work. I cut my stuff down to like 30 to 45 seconds, a few really impressive clips, and that's when things started working out for me, on the audition circuit. And I have to say that that's been really, like that advice is really, really true. If someone tells you full movements, that's great. Put it at the end of a video, and in your video listing say, if you'd like to see a full movement, go to track 5. But for those first few, really just pick that best conducting, because that's what they're going to definitely look at. Yeah. And so I learned that from Ankush, and it's benefited me from that moment on.
I think it's to go back to what you were saying, it's the people you work for in an organization, but it's also the people you went to school with. I mean, Vinay, you went to Curtis. There's people will be in orchestras one day, and if they're not in orchestras one day, then they're going to be running orchestras one day. I have this experience with Aspen. When I went to Aspen, now it's 15 whatever years ago. But those people are running orchestras. Those people are in major orchestras. Those people were in the Concertgebouw. So it all kind of connects when you get there, and they're, yes, I know this person. Yes, they're a good guy. They're a good musician. They conduct well. It means a lot. You're planting seeds everything you do, whether it's, you know, with each other, with other colleagues, with musicians, with administrators. I mean, these things, they completely, this world is way too small. So if you upset anybody, unintentionally even, it's gonna have a ripple effect. And conversely, if you make a great impression with somebody, that person may work for the Cleveland Orchestra one day. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would just say do your best at all times. I remember when I first started conducting, I met with David Robertson, a long time ago. And he just said that, and it's just been stuck with me. He's like, just everything you do, you have to do the best job you can, because you never know who's in the audience, no matter what it is. And he did a concert in Europe or France, I'm not quite sure exactly where in Europe, France or Paris, and Pierre Boulez was in the audience. It was a new music concert. Pierre Boulez was in the audience, and then he got the ensemble that ICE, you know, or whatever the ensemble he has in Paris, and that meant that completely launched his career, and he's a specialist in that, and you know, you never know what could have happened or could have happened, or you know, you never know. So it's really important.
And going on that too, I think the workshops are so important because with my first job, and possibly even in Detroit, when they were calling my references, they called my references I had listed, but then they saw all the workshops I had listed that I had gone to, and they called everyone from those workshops, people that they knew, and said, you know, what do you remember about Michelle? And they would have things that they remembered, or they would have impressions. And I think it's so often, you know, for hopefully the people watching this, they're in that stage of where they're going to these workshops, and they might just think, oh, I have to just be about me. And that's true in a sense that you want to improve, but you also want to be, you know, the team player that's for everyone. You want everyone there to improve. And because you want that camaraderie throughout your life, I mean, I think I met everyone here except maybe Aleem at a workshop. And it's so fun to see how everyone else's career is going. It makes me so excited. And I think that to go ahead and start establishing those connections and a spirit of positivity rather than of competition is always really, really important in this very cutthroat world.
Sure. And now that you've mentioned workshops, I'm contractually obligated by Amanda Wicker to ask everybody, like, what has a Conductors Guild workshop meant for you? Which have you attended? And I think I met everybody here either at a Conductors Guild Baltimore Symphony workshop or Cabrillo or something. Just talk about the role that's played, and then my plug will be over.
Well, I think we just did it. I mean, I did a Conductors workshop with Ken Kiesler, which made me want to go study with him for a year. I did one with Marin Alsop a couple summers ago, but really, really opened up a lot of things in Cabrillo and the orchestras that were in the festival, and with her. And I think just again, same thing. I've met all of you guys at some capacity or another, everyone except Lim, I think. And I think those guys are now assistant conductors at other orchestras, and those guys or girls are music directors in places, and then they give their colleagues guest conducting. Like it's there's not a lot of workshops like that happening in America, and just to have an organization be responsible for that and take ownership of that and do it at such a high level with great teachers and great orchestras is key. It's really, thank God they're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with that. Like the Cabrillo Festival is definitely one of the highlights every year, and I was really fortunate to go twice, once as an auditor and then the next time as a participant. And to work with Marin Alsop that was really eye-opening, and the things that she taught young conductors, and then I met her again in LSO that she came a few months earlier. That was just again really nice to connect again, and even Cabrillo, other than Marin Alsop, there are two other musicians that I will meet again in Hong Kong Philharmonic when I go, because they played in the orchestra, and also just like administration-wise, also because like again, what you do on the podium and how you are as a person really can go far. But if people remember you, if you connect with people, then like things will happen without you even knowing, and So Cabrillo and the other one, the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra workshop where I met John again. That one was again. I was really grateful for that opportunity because it's when I got the opportunity to stand up in front of a really professional orchestra and just do it like in such a short time to how to be a professional musician. That's something again without that kind of occasion, it's really hard to learn because like conducting, where can we practice? We can't until you're on the podium in the moment, and then it's like you either make it or you lose it. So it's those are the like the workshops really give that opportunity to really make the mistake now, learn it, and then we can be better.
And along with the faculty, of course, working with Marinette Cabrillo, Gustav Meyer, working with a professional orchestra is so different than working with a student orchestra. And I mean, the orchestra at Curtis is like a world-class orchestra, but still, it's a different vibe standing in front of a professional orchestra and to have that opportunity to learn what that experience is like, because the way you work is so different, and it's such great practice before you have to do an assistant conductor audition, where it's a safe kind of environment where you can really learn, from the musicians, learn from whoever's heading the master class. But any time in front of a professional orchestra, especially when you're a student or in between, is so valuable.
And I think, sometimes the concern is cost, and Conductors Guild workshops are actually one of the lowest costs for the value that you get out of it. But even aside from that, those people that might be thinking, oh, I can just do 1 a year, I can just do 2 a year, I would say, for me at least, I found it incredibly valuable to try to do as many as I could feasibly do and just not worry about the cost. And that is possibly the worst advice you'll get tonight. But you have to, I think, believe that you're investing in your education, and it's not just you're having to pay for the plane ride and you're having to pay for the workshop or having to pay for the hotel, but it's another piece of that education. And as we all know, it all worked out for all of us here, investing that time and investing that chance to go do something and get another chance to get on the podium in front of professionals. I think there was one year I probably did 10 or 12 workshops in that year, and I found that very invaluable, and I try to tell anyone that's starting out in their master's degree to go to workshops as much as you can. Put it on a credit card. I know this is terrible financial advice, but I think it's very worth it to do that and put in the money then, so that hopefully you can make the money later and pay it back.
Well, but the guild actually gives like scholarships, so
they do, and that's the one great thing about Conductors Guild workshops too.
Yeah. It's all seeds. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And what I would say also is that what Ankush referenced about auditioning for your peers all the time, at a Conductors Guild workshop, it's really one of the only time you're going to meet the conductors of your generation. That's how I know most of my conducting friends. And that's where the work gets passed around. I've gotten gigs from people that I've worked with, or recommendations, or I'm leaving this job, they're not advertising it publicly, here's a heads up. All these things perpetuate throughout your career, and the Conductors Guild is a great place to get that start. And as Vinay said, it's a simulation of an audition, except the teacher or the maestro or the music director will tell you what they think of you for real, as opposed to writing it down on a piece of paper and told thanks so much, So have 8 or 10 minutes on the podium, and you're nervous, and you're in front of a group of peers and professional players, and like Vinay said, like the only time you get to touch a professional orchestra before you leave school, and you have to do it in 10 minutes for a job, is at these workshops. And it's really true that the sensation of conducting a professional group and the way they respond to your beat and your gestures and the things that you're allowed to say to them, especially an assistant conductor role, differ wildly from your kind of authority you have when you're conducting a student group, which is usually you're the best musician in the room, and all of a sudden you might be the least experienced one, and it's a big turnaround.
Two quick things. Just the Conductors Guild specifically with their workshops was nice. I mean, I remember being a younger participant and getting advice from the older participants, and more recently when I was an older participant, I remember going through people's scores and saying, like, how do you do this, and how was that, and they went off the podium destroyed or ecstatic, and you either destroy them or confirm that they did a great job. And I think that's the kind of feedback you get from colleagues, and that's particular with Conductors Guild. It's not competitive, it's been collegial, and there's no ego involved. We're all there to learn. And I love the career workshop because I thought Marin was very good at giving advice for all levels, from like just first time conducting professional orchestra to somebody further experienced. The second thing I wanted to address with Conductors Guild, just thought of this now, is that the first time I went to New York ever was at a Conductors Guild conference. So conference, not only these workshops, but conferences are important, and you meet the colleagues there. I got a ton of cards. I just started conducting. I barely knew what I was doing. You go to the exhibits, you talk to people who with the scores, who are selling scores and composers, and you just come on with a stack of cards. And if you're good about going through them, then you'll make connections again, that seed that you're planting down the road in years to come. And just when you get stuck on a programming idea, you call this person that you met at the conference.
Yeah.
When you get stuck on an audition question or how to conduct this, I've given lessons to conductors who are far more experienced than I am on repertoire that I've done more than they have, because you're always a beginner when you start a score for the first time, and vice versa. So if I've taught someone just again pieces they've never done, it's just like, whoa, well I've done it 14 times with professional orchestras, so these are all the trap spots, or the things that you don't realize that when you're studying are difficult. You realize it later on, having done it live. So conference is also great, and I know now that the next conference is in January 2017 in Philadelphia. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity to meet all of your great colleagues.
Okay, plug over. I have that leads into a beautiful segue into my next question, which I'm struggling with right now. You know, I just started my assistant conductor job at Princeton Symphony, and the first day on the job, the executive director comes over to me and says, "Program a holiday pops concert." Oh my God. I studied Beethoven and Brahms and Elgar and Stravinsky in school. I don't know which arrangement of Harry Potter suite to do, and what are the hard movements not to do in the Tchaikovsky Nutcracker suite, and how does Sleigh Ride go again? I mean, you know, these are things that all of a sudden you're supposed to be an expert on, and you might never have studied or worked on the repertoire. So I'd love to ask you all how you approach that when you enter into a role where you're winning competitions or you're winning huge auditions, and then you're conducting music you might never even thought of, much less programmed a full concert.
I think going back to what we were just talking about in terms of making connections, I called, you know, all the other colleagues of mine when this predicament came up. I mean, at school you never have to program a holiday pops or many education concerts or a Halloween concert. You know, we didn't have to do any of that. But then you have to program 10 or 12 concerts of these, you know, in a short span of time. So what do? I just called people who had jobs in other orchestras. I mean, that's the whole idea of how small this world is, how you need to make connections, and that's the best advice you can get are from people who've had to do it. And the other thing is that, you know, every orchestra is going to have an archive of programs they've done. So the first thing I did was go to the library and, you know, give me the stack of programs that were done for holiday pops or education for the last how many years, and that's what I came home with. And you go through them. You see what fits with what vision you may have, but I think those are the best guides to go by.
I think it's really important to, anytime you have a chance, to go to other orchestras, pops concerts, holiday concerts, and I just keep a little list on my phone in the notes that says, like, oh, I liked this song, I liked this song, I liked this joke that this conductor said, I liked the way that they explained timbre, and to be able to utilize those. Because I think you can see another conductor's style of humor and say, like, oh, that would definitely work for me, or be like, oh no, I could never pull that off. And you kind of learn what works for you and what works for others. But I think it's really great to get ideas by watching. You know, even if it's Detroit and maybe I'm not doing the pops concert, I'll just go in and see what they do and see what Jeff Tyzik says. And I think what Vinay said about getting old programs is great. You can always also go to the New York Phil, has their whole online catalog of programs, and they have every young person's concert they ever did. And so sometimes if I have a piece I really want to do, I'll just type that piece in and see what else they did it on, you know, see what other pieces they might have paired with that particular piece that I'm trying to find a companion with.
Anybody else on that? All right. So another thing that's very much allowed. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about was, you know, as an assistant conductor, you have like 7 different jobs. You have to learn all the repertoire for the music director, and you cover them. You have to be ready to jump up on the podium at a moment's notice, and sometimes it literally is a moment's notice. And you have to know, is like, if they turn around and ask you a question, what is the answer they actually want? You know, because that's oftentimes what they're looking for. And then you're an ambassador to the community. you're performing other functions as education and outreach. You might sometimes be working as a conduit between the music director and the musicians. Can you give the second clarinet the note that I don't like the way they're playing? And you have to find a way to do that. And so what are some tips that you've learned along the way, or jobs you were entrusted with that you didn't expect that weren't in the job description?
Ooh.
I think
hard.
as the assistant conductor, in some ways you're like a psychologist as well, because you really have to be really good at reading people, and you have to know your particular music director might really want to hear certain things, or they might really not want to hear certain things, and they might want to hear it before rehearsal, or they might want to hear it after rehearsal. And I think learning your music director and learning how to best assist them, because that really is first and foremost one of the primary roles of the assistant, is to assist the music director. And I think helping them in the best way possible is kind of a mind game in a way, because you want to figure out how to make them feel like they're doing the best job that they can, while at the same time saying, like, yeah, that trumpet really did sound out of tune. And in Detroit, it's also weird because we have this whole added element of doing these online productions. So I think as the assistant, that was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a webcast concert my third week on the job, for however many people. And just being able to always have a good face to put forward. And I think it just really goes back to what both Elim and Ankush and everyone here has said. Just always do the best job you can, whether you're meeting a patron, whether you're having to give a pre-concert lecture, whether you're talking to the music director. You always need to be, I think, your best when you're with him or her or the musicians, so that you're giving just the best input and musical response that you can.
You should always, every orchestra is going to have a different mission, different things they prioritize, and even before you audition, when you're applying, you should really get to learn what that orchestra does, what are they about, because it's different for every orchestra. For example, here in Nashville, we commission a lot of new American works, and we record them. We do a lot of premieres. That's at the core of what we do here. So I had that understanding going in, and first couple months on the job, I'm in the recording room because we're making a recording of a premiere, and I had no experience about how to lead a patch session. So I think a lot of it is really understanding what the mission is of the orchestra that you're working for, and knowing that going forward, because I think that'll help take care of maybe a lot of curveballs you might be thrown on the job.
And I think assisting, I think what Michelle said about being a good mind reader, or some kind of the ability to understand the personalities of your music director, the guest conductors. I mean, when they turn around, they're usually looking for confirmation of what they already think. So I tend to make them look good by agreeing with them. And if I really disagree, I will go back at the break and address something if I have a good relationship with them. There's countless examples of where you have to just kind of think on the spot and finesse the egos of the soloist and the conductor who's on the podium. I tend to, again, be less is more. I feel like being available to the conductor, but not down their throat, not jumping up at everything. Choose your battles. I don't run down to the podium unless I know this is the last rehearsal for like the last thing, and this is the one thing that he or she wanted to make sure was okay, and they did not turn around to address it. So I might bother them for a split second. But again, it's the relationship you have with that person. And the musicians as well. I always say that I walk around with a score backstage, at the break, because they often have questions that they don't want to ask the music director. So be a resource to them backstage, and they're looking for input too, and they're looking to be given, just like in chamber music setting, they're looking for input, but they want to do it and be told in a nice way. Like, they don't want to be told they're out of tune. There's other ways you can do it, and that's why chamber music is a wonderful way to learn how to conduct at the beginning, being able to coach each other and give suggestions and augment musical and just technical things in any ensemble. It's a great coach. It's a great way to learn.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I will add to this is, yes, we're psychologists, we're a cheerleader.
That's a good word.
Definitely, because and you have to be the most positive person in the room. And the last thing I also learned in the few months that I'm in my job right now is that at the same time we're working with really high caliber musicians that we have to be also honest. We have to, when actually things are not good, we have to find, yes, the nicest way, but you have to address certain things, because in the end, it can come back and bite you, because when things not, then you will regret, why didn't I say certain things when, when I'm being asked. So yes, being a good person, but the honesty that in the end, and also how to be clear and how to just say things in a very fast, clear way, and then get things done. That's really important. That's what yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I would say that I do a lot of cover conducting, assistant conducting, and my mind is working at 100% every second that I'm in the hall. It's easy to check your phone, it's easy to zone out, it's easy to conduct along, but what I'm trying to do is I'm saying to myself, if the music director stopped right now and turned around and asked, what are you hearing, what would I say?
Yeah.
And I'm taking really quick notes, but I'm also prioritizing. So I have sticky notes that I put in on specific spots that I can turn to right away, and I write what I would say about that spot on the sticky note. And then I have a pad that I write in order general things. So if he says to me, what is the most important thing that I can say to the orchestra? It's the woodwinds are taking the pianissimos and they're making them too loud. Or something like that, just one quick comment that you can say that's applicable and general, and that he would feel or she would feel comfortable saying to the orchestra. So that's really important, I think. And then this is kind of a small thing, but I think also vitally important. Ankush referenced this, how to make yourself available. At break, I stand right at the side of the stage in the same spot every time, so he or she can see me, but I'm not imposing, because a lot of times the players want to go up and talk to them at break, even if you have the most important thing in the world to say. If the conductor doesn't want to talk to you, don't talk to them. But always be there and ready, like Ankush said, with your score and an idea of what you're going to say if they ask you anything. And I think being prepared,
they may ask you nothing.
Being prepared but not pushy is the best route to success.
Yes, and at the end, just stand by and say, if they want a drink, sure.
Yeah, so we have a kind of special group of guests that are in our audience in the webosphere here. Aleem went to Smith College as an undergraduate, and apparently their orchestra has stopped rehearsing and put her on a webcam there. We want to say hello to you because they're so proud of you. And they wanted to know what the impact that your undergraduate experience of rehearsing and conducting their orchestra on a regular basis, how that impacted and affected your route of graduate study and then the future you find yourself as part of now.
Okay. So they're watching me right now, right?
Yes, say hi first.
Hi! Hi, Smithies! First of all, yes, I'm very proud to be a Smithie, and till this day, I'm still very proud of Smith College. I went to a girls' college, and it's where, that there's an environment where I recognize that being a girl, I can achieve my dream. I can, really chase after what I really believe in, and without, the worry of because the boys are in the classroom and I can't say anything, they get all the opportunities, but there's none of that. And that's where I also met a lot of very strong women who are also out there changing the world. So talking about that, first, it's where I really I changed my career path, because I went into Smith College thinking I'm going to be pre-med, I'm going to be a science girl, I'm not going to do music at all, even though I studied music in Hong Kong. And but that's where I started singing in the college chorus, and during my audition, when I was singing, then the conductor at the time told me, can you be my assistant conductor in the choir? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, go ahead. And so talk about being an assistant. And then I was offered to conduct one song on the concert, in the first fall concert, and then that's how it started. After that, the faculty came to me and just said, I think you should really do music. It's in you, even though you want to do science. And I was like, well, but my parents would be really mad at me if I dropped the science, the whole, career, the future. But I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And then I was given the opportunity to step up. Again, the conductor, we were doing, I think my sophomore year, we were doing Dies Irae from Verdi's Requiem. It was a part of a big concert, different pieces. And the conductor, my teacher, just like, oh, Elaine, you are going to conduct now. You're going to do the Verdi Requiem, the Dies Irae right now, with an orchestra, with the Smith College Orchestra and the choir. I was like, are you serious? But sure, okay, I would do it. And of course, studied, I prepared. And that was the moment after I conducted, I was like, I'm going to conduct orchestra. Choir is not enough. I'm going to do orchestra. And of course, orchestral choral repertoire, it's again, I think one of the best music written. But that's when, in my sophomore year, I decided that that's it. And I packed up my mind and went into music. And I have to say, without Smith, without all the teachers that really believed in me, really pushed me hard, without Jonathan Hirsch, I don't know if he's watching right now, but he really prepared me. And then that's where then he told me about Medomic, where I went to during the summer, where I met my teacher, Ken Kiesler. And that's how it kind of also laid the path for Michigan later on from my grad school. So it's everything I have to say. It was a seed that was planted back at Smith. And of course, again, talking about being an assistant conductor, I was the assistant conductor to the Smith College Orchestra. That's why I made all the mistakes I could have made. I said all the wrong words. Really learned a lot of lessons before I got to grad school and before where I am now. So thank you, Smith College. And again, Smithies, if you really believe in what you believe in, because you can really do it. And Smith offers the world to you. The teachers, your friends, they're all going to be out there cheering for you, and you're going to get it. So
great. So Aleem, that's so beautifully said, and I think it references, kind of beginnings. Everyone kind of stumbles into conducting, and then you find it as a passion. And I'm going to start off this next one because I think I've probably done some of the funniest things to become a conductor. I mean, I've conducted, six-member community college orchestras, and I've done the worst community orchestra stuff you could possibly imagine, and I've paid my friends in pizza to conduct. I mean, there's so many things you have to do at the beginning so that you can say you've stood up in front of people, waved your baton, and get some video to get you to that next step. And so one of the beautiful things about this Google Hangout process we've got is that people were able to submit questions in advance, and one of the best ones that came in was asking about for your first starting job, and what are the advantages about aiming for an assistant conductor job where someone's your boss and telling you what to do and your kind of opportunities are decided for you, as opposed to, and a lot of people did this, including Marin Alsop, who's come up several times, is starting your own group, being in charge, learning how to do everything, worrying about the money, and building from there. So why don't we just all talk a little bit about any experiences we've had on either side of that road and how they helped or maybe even hindered your career's path?
Well, I didn't really look into starting my own ensemble. I know other friends of mine were thinking about that, but I was kind of focused on trying to get an assistant job. And I think the advantages of it are you learn from the inside out how a professional orchestra works, which is really important because you don't learn that in school. It's really important to go to a marketing meeting to learn about how the board directors work, how all these different facets of the orchestra, a 100-person staff, what they're all doing to put the product on stage together. Learning that is, I think, really, really important, and I think it's going to help me out in the future. The other thing is, it's part of the assistant the assistant job is a lot of it when you're covering is you're getting paid to learn from a lot of great conductors who have 20 years experience. I get to watch Giancarlo work and other guest conductors who've come through Nashville and other guest artists who've come through Nashville, Emmanuel Axel, Yomad, they have all come here in my time here. Watching them work in rehearsal and concert is a great learning experience. And I think probably the best part is that you just get a lot of repertoire under your belt, whether you're covering or whether you're on the podium in a young people's concert or something. And what's nice about it is that, for a lot of the concerts you do as assistant conductor, like I said, you want to give it your all, and you want to give it to your best. But if it's for like a summer outdoor concert, or we do a concert in Shelbyville in a horse arena every year, but it's something that we've done for a long time. it gives you the opportunity to try out repertoire you've never done before, and it's not the most high pressure situation. I think it gives it just a little bit of a little bit of a safer space to learn. Okay, I'm doing this piece for the first time. How's it going to go? So I think there are a lot of advantages to that, and like I said, learning how the orchestra works from the inside out, and really building up your repertoire and watching the other people on stage who have 20, 30 years experience.
I think everything you do when you're growing up in conducting is valuable. I try to keep, starting your own ensembles. I started a couple things at Berkeley just to get podium time and work with my friends and learn from them. And I do the rehearsal and get off the podium and ask my concertmaster about bowings and just trying to really get better and better. So any opportunity you can create for yourself organically, and it was a wonderful thing to do because it gets you podium time early on. And conducting the 6-violin string orchestra or my first youth orchestra was, and I would make arrangements for them, and it was just such a valuable thing to learn all of that and to work with them. And then as I got better growing up in conducting with the youth orchestra thing, I was able to conduct better youth orchestras, and I think I'm glad I did that before getting my first assistantship, because I had the ability to conduct great youth orchestras and great repertoire and have 12 rehearsals of that, and to be able to rehearse an orchestra and to learn that skill set and get that hands-on knowledge for years, that kind of podium time with the repertoire and unfolding it and then kind of figuring it out, tuning and everything, chords and whatnot, and working with the strings. So I have a good sense of how to work and rehearse an orchestra, and I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't have the youth orchestra non-professional experience. But then you go to a professional orchestra and it's a totally different animal. So you have that podium time, and I have to take what you learned there and apply it to a major orchestra. So you throw out a bunch of stuff, you learn new stuff. You're working with the marketing department, seeing how these music directors work. You're looking at what goes. Some of the best things you can learn as an assistant is what not to do. We all know that, and I just said it. Yeah. There's a lot of things you're going to learn in the assistantship. So I've always had a philosophy of just doing the best job, doing whatever job you can, but not maybe sticking around too long. Every job I've had in 3, 4, or 5 years. I think because we're only going to be good when we're 70, so as much experience you can get between now and 70 is the best thing you can do for your education. And to do only assistantships or only youth orchestras or only brass bands or only choirs is not going to really or only opera is not going to get you to where you want to go necessarily. That being said, I feel like the question doesn't account for where you want to end up. If you just want to conduct great ensembles or whatever ensembles you build, whatever it comes to you, then go build it and make it your own and get in the door of other ensembles that are going to be great for you. If you want to conduct a Berlin Phil, then there's another route you're going to have to think about, and you're going to have a major assistantship on your resume or major guest conducting along the way, I think, to get to that level so people know you on that level. So in Cleveland, or when you're assistant at Cleveland, the people in Chicago are talking about you. And unfortunately, if you're the youth orchestra in Connecticut, they're not going to be talking about you. So that's just the reality of the assistantship. And if you have no desire to do that, whatever, just go for it, get better.
All right, and I think we're going to ask everybody for just a quick final thought, and mine will serve as a bridge, because I think that I've done the starting my own ensemble thing, and I've also now worked with some of the high-level professional orchestras, and I think that the thing that helped me the most was at the beginning of my career, I made sure to learn how everything worked, and Vinay, you referenced that for sure. I joined the board of an orchestra locally just to make sure I knew what language they spoke and what impressed them, because these people may make the decision about your career and they might not know the first thing about conducting. It's important to know what impresses them, what they look for, and the type of discussions they have. Yeah. I marketed for my orchestra. I set up the chairs for my orchestra. I coordinated with percussionists to figure out how they need to get their stuff in. I did the budget. I actually am the executive director of an orchestra right now. That is an eye-opening experience. You worry about budget and nothing else. So there's all these things that you roll into your career that end up allowing you to work better with the staff at the orchestra you want to end up at. And I think that that's a really valuable thing that everybody has said in a certain way today, that if you are sympathetic to the challenges of other people's jobs, you're going to make yourself valuable within any organization you arrive at. And so that's Absolutely. A really key point. And I think my closing thought would be that as a conductor, we overestimate sometimes what it means to be good here. Everyone that applies is going to be a good conductor, and some people will like what you do musically, some don't. But everyone likes a good communicator. Aleem, you said this well. You said, you find a quick way to say things efficiently to the music director. You find a fun way to say things to your pops audience. You find a convincing way to speak to your board. You find an innovative way to speak to your education director. If you can communicate to all the key constituents within the organization, and that's from audience members to your boss, that's a really a compelling thing that they look for, and actually comes across much better in an audition process than maybe whether or not you conduct Don Juan 5% better than the person that came before or after you. So don't underestimate the value of thinking carefully about who you are as a musician and as a conductor, finding a compelling way to tell that story, and then thinking critically about music and what it means to your community and to your audience so that you can speak very well to that. So that would be my closing thought. Why don't we all give a 30-second final thought here?
Don't forget why you got into this in the first place. I think it's really easy to, when we're thinking about career and where are we going next, and following that path. Remember why you love the music in the first place, why you wanted to be a conductor in the first place. I think that's really important. The other thing is, be genuine, be about the music, be yourself. Orchestras can tell within 5 seconds if you're not being yourself. So don't even try to drift from that. They'll respect you more if you're coming from a place of, a really genuine place that is truly expressing yourself.
Okay.
I think to go off that too, yeah, always be musical. Always find, even in these kiddie shows, a chance to make music. And I think for some of you watching, if you've been through this audition process and you're like, it's not going anywhere, don't get frustrated, because you might bake the best chocolate cake out there, and if they want pecan pie, they're not going to take your chocolate cake. So it's all about finding the right fit for you and them. And so keep making that incredible chocolate cake and do the best you can, and know in yourself that it's the best you can. I had a teacher once that told me after a recital and everyone was coming up and saying, oh, it was so great, it was so great, that said, did you think it was great? Because that's all that really matters. And I think so many times, again, like Vinay said, being true to yourself and being true to our art, and just going out there and doing the best job you can, and always staying true to the music and being musical, and it will happen in one way or another for you too.
Yeah, I think then to build on that, to be true to yourself, you have to really know yourself, know what your strength, what your weaknesses are, and to be really honest about that too, because that you can really determine, okay, what decisions you're going to make and what is the person you're going to be. And I think for nowadays it's really important because there's so many trends. We all want to do this certain thing. We want to be famous. We want to throw ourselves out there. The media, everyone is watching us. Everyone is looking. You want to put yourself out there for a lot of things. But at the same time, it's really important for musicians, for conductors, actually to know in the end what is important to you, what are your priorities, and and that will really define who you are. And I also heard this saying a lot, is a lot of conductors are very busy being famous, because that is very easy to get in the get on our heads. But then really if you're a good person, that will go a long way, and that will come through in your music and come through in your work, come through in your relationships, and that's what stick and really stay through the end. And that's what people actually remember. That people will remember not just coming to you like that. Oh, that Beethoven was great, but they really can taste who you are from your music making. So that is really what I will say.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot today about the logistics and the connections and the resume and the video, and I don't want us to lose sight about exactly what Vinay said, why we are here and what we're doing. Why we want to do this, what do we bring to the table. And I think that we just have to always be learning, and even what we said about being famous, it's never about that. It's always getting better. And the best conductors, like I said, are 70. And it's not only that they're 70, it's that they never thought they were good from 0 to 70. I had a teacher once say that, be confident and be right and be strong on the podium, but as soon as you get off, go back and study for another 24 hours because you don't know anything. And I don't want to lose sight of the musical part, the going to rehearsals, going to concerts, teaching and coaching chamber music, studying your scores, being prepared is the only thing you can do great and that you can control before you get in front of an orchestra. It's the only thing that really brings you confidence when you stand up in front of a group, whether it's Berlin Phil or your youth orchestra. And I don't want to lose sight. There are logistic things that we're going to do and we want to help you to get better, but at the end of the day, your conducting does matter, and what you're able to bring to the table does matter, and that's really what we need to be focusing on. This stuff is just hopefully will get you to be seen. But we all talk about getting the audition, but then you have to audition, and then you have to win the competition, and it becomes very quick to the orchestra who's the stronger candidate in any given audition. And if you've done everything up until then, I've had colleagues pad their resume. One logistical thing on that, when you do a resume or a bio, make sure, as happened with Michelle, make sure every single person on that resume and every single person on that bio that someone can call and they will say good things. Even if you've done it, like I did this workshop, but they didn't like me. Don't put that workshop down. It's important that that people are able to call your references glowingly. So don't worry about it'll come organically. I know people who pad their resumes, like I said, or just kind of blow up their persona, and it's just people see through that so quickly. So just focus on the music and study.
And so, I had to say on behalf of the Conductors Guild, as a kind of the board member rep here, thank you to the four of you all. This was enlightening. It was entertaining. I think that a lot of people tuning in, it's a little overwhelming to be the moderator. I have this group chat on the right side, and we're getting streams of questions in. And I'm sorry, of course, you don't get to all of them. But I would encourage you, if you're watching, all of these folks, I know them personally. They would love to get an email from you. They have a website. If there's somebody that would that you would like to connect with personally, please write them an email. That's what we're here for. The Conductors Guild is the only organization that I know of that unites conductors at every level with no boundaries, and we are here for each other. We can be resources in what is sometimes a lonely world. And we also have to thank Amanda Winger, the executive director, who works tirelessly on behalf of the Conductors Guild to unite everyone and to spearhead these types of efforts. And the really great thing that I can proudly say is that there are going to be many, many more of these. This is just the first of a session type that we're going to extend throughout the foreseeable future. And one thing we want to ask for from the members of the Conductors Guild is for suggestions about topics you would like to see addressed, people you would like to hear speak, because next time the five of us are going to be audience members when someone richer and famous or ours are going to be. So please let us know your ideas and do follow up. I apologize for anybody that didn't get their question answered, but we're happy to follow up with you individually. And on behalf of all five of us, thank you for watching, and tune in the next time at the Conductors Guild Google Hangouts. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.